Some kit to do your hot stones. You start off with your hot stone heater, and if you can pop a lighter towel down at the bottom so that you can see your stones quite easily when you're fishing them out. And you also need some sort of scoop that you can easily take your stones out of the water because it's going to be too hot just to pop your hands in. You need your different sizes of stones. You've got from your giant stones to your tiny stones. So this is sometimes called the sacral stone. And if you're going to pop this on the body, because it's quite warm and it holds its heat, you can pop it within a towel so that it's not hurting the skin, it's not too hot. Different sizes of stones for different types of massage in different areas of the body. The bigger the stone, the longer it holds its heat. So the smaller stones obviously are going to cool down a bit quicker. You've got tiny stones here that can be excellent on the face or on small areas. And you've also got these stones here which are more pointy, so they are great if you want to really get into different muscles and do some nodule removal. You need your massage medium of your choice. And then you've got tiny stones here which can be great just for popping in between the toes or in between the fingers. But because these are tiny, imagine how difficult it is trying to fish them out. So ideally you can pop them into some sort of scoop, and then when you heat them in the water, it's just a case of taking them right out. They're here and they're ready just for you to start using. Okay, back of the leg for hot stones. There's lots of different ways that people like to do it, but the way we do it is cover the leg with enough of your massage medium and just do a few minutes of manual massage just to warm up the tissues and prepare your client. So it can be your effleurage, it can be some petrissage, and then after you're quite happy that you've introduced your touch and the tissues are nice and warm, take some of your stones. So we've taken them out of the water and we've dried them so they're not wet, because sometimes the oil and water mix can be quite irritating for the client. Make sure that the temperature is quite nice. If it's too warm, then just turn the stones in your hands for a few moments. You can even pop them down and use the heat on your hands just to introduce the heat. But once you're good to go, you can start at the top of the leg and just start effleuraging. And you can flip the stones as and when you need to. And what you're really doing is keeping them in the palms of your hands and using it as an extension of your own massage. Every move that you do is going to get deeper into the tissues, and the heat is going to have more of an effect than it would do with a manual massage. So you can do lots of effleurage. You can do different moves such as your kneading, you can do stroking, you can even move using the edges of the stones, just moving strips and pull back. You can do circles. Just really use those stones as an extension of your hands. And when you feel that you've done enough and the heat is starting to move from the stones and they're starting to cool down, before they become really cool, on your final moves, you can just slide and allow one stone just to rest at the node behind the knee. And you can use the other stone just to warm up the foot. Again, flip it as you need to, distribute the heat. Just a nice little massage over the foot. And then when you're finished, if it will, you can just sit it in the middle of the foot and then just cover up the leg and move on to the other foot. Then when you're finished the full back of the body, you would just gently remove those stones and clean them thoroughly before you place them in water. So we've already applied the oil to the back, and what you can do before you start the hot stones in the back is actually use one of your largest stones, sometimes called the sacral stone, and place it just in that area at the very lower part of the spine going into the glutes. But because it's so hot, it would be really painful. It would actually burn if it touched the skin. So you can pop it into some sort of protective towel and then just place it on the area. And then you just ask your client if it's comfortable, if it's in a nice position, and they're going to feel a very gentle heat as you're working on the treatment. So we've already applied the oil. You can do some very gentle warming, skin warming movements again. You can do some effleurage, some pétrissage, just enough so that again it's not too much of a shock to the skin if you just go in with intense heat. And then when you're ready and you've warmed it up, you've already got your stones outside of your water. Again, if they feel really, really hot, then just keep turning them in your hands. If you want to introduce the heat through your hands first, then the first thing you can do is actually have the heat of the stone still there and just start to do your massage. And again, a few more turns of the stones in your hands, place them down safely where they're not going to touch the skin, and the residual heat within your hands is a lovely introduction. Then when you are ready to use your stones, you don't want to start at the base of the back because it's very sensitive and it's almost guaranteed that intense heat will make your client jump. So up at the top of your back, it can take more heat. So this is where you want to start. So keep moving. Don't stop at any point, because if the heat builds up in one area, it can start to really irritate your client, could even burn. So start at the top rather, keep moving. Flip the stones so that it's a nice, even, continuous heat. And just begin your movement. So you can do effleurage, just move over the areas. And again, treat the stones as an extension of your hands. So whatever you do, it's a deeper move because of the stones and because of the heat. Once you've done this a few times, you can start to move round and just take the stones wherever you want to. Again, you don't want to work directly over the spine, but everywhere else can just be an extension of what you would normally do in, say, a Swedish. So we can do effleurage, we can do palmar kneading. Flip the stones if you need to. We can do different kneading moves all over the areas. We can do stroking. And some really nice stretching moves. And again, you're trying to sense when the heat is starting to leave the stones, and when you feel that they're starting to get a bit cool, that's when you start to place them and move on to your next stones. And you start with your larger stones first if you want to on the back, but there are so many different ways of doing it. This is just one particular way. You can stretch out that area. So when we feel that we're losing the heat in these, you can very gently place them, and then you grab your next two. Same idea again. They've been sitting out just for a moment or two, so they're not roasting hot, and they're also dried so that they don't become an oily, watery mess on the back. So you can turn in your hands just to get the heat. If you want to start again just with the heat in your hands, same as before, just to introduce. And then when you're ready, just start at the top of the back. And what you can also do now is use the edges of your stones if you want to just work doing any circles to get rid of any nodules, any tightness. So you can do that and then use your stones just to drain. We can also slide the stones around the neck and the shoulders. We can work along the lower back. And we can also work down the spine just using the edges of your stones. And again, you would take your time, just showing you the basics of what you can do here. And as before, once you feel that you've used the heat and it's starting to cool down a little bit, place your stones and move on to your next ones. Same as before, these are smaller yet again, so we can spend a little bit more time on other areas. Just take the stones where you need to. Spend quite a little bit of time here. Release tension in the neck. What you can also do is take the heat over the arms up to the elbows, and it's a lovely sensation for your client because that skin will be quite cool in comparison to the skin that's been warmed up by the stones. And again, once you're finished, pop your stones along the back. They start to lose their heat, but when you're working on the area, it's still a lovely sensation for your client. And then when you are finished, you can take away the sacral stone, you can pop the towel over, do everything that you need to do to prepare your stones for the next part, and then when it's time to move the client, that's when you can gently remove each stone. A little addition for the back that not everyone does is to use the longer stones, and these are great for really spending a lot of time working on specifics, especially around about the scapula, just in the shoulder blades, and you can really get in there and spend a lot of time trying to break down any knots and nodules. It's also really good for these ones to spend a bit of time working down the spine, so you might want to use these before you've placed your other stones. They're also ideal if someone really does suffer quite badly with tension at the base of the back. And the other thing that these are ideal for is you can really scoop in much easier than you can with the standard stones. You can scoop right in to the neck at the clavicle area. And then when you're finished with these stones, you can actually just pop them round about this area and just let the heat sink into what can be quite a tense area. If you really wanted to spend quite a lot of time on your client, you can ask them to move their hand behind the shoulder and it'll raise up the scapula, and you can really get into the gap that you can see when they move and spend a lot of time just easing up tension there. Front of leg for hot stones, we've applied the massage medium, and again we just spend a few moments doing some manual massage over the area. Just do some light Swedish moves just to warm it up and prepare it for the stones. When you're ready, as usual, your stones are nice and dry from the water. You can turn them a few times in your hands just to get used to the heat. If you want to, you can then use the residual heat in your hands just to do a few initial effleurages. And then if the stones aren't too hot, you can start at the lower leg and just start moving up without stopping moving the stones. But if they're too hot, then start at the top of the leg where it can take more heat. And as usual, use the stones as an extension of your hands. Do any moves that you feel comfortable doing. So do all your Swedish moves and just keep those stones flowing. Turn them round when you need to, but just make sure that when they're hot, you don't keep one in one place because it could burn the skin. So just take your time. Again, you can work in strips, you can do kneading, you can do ringing, you can work around the knee and use the edge of the stones just to release any tension. You can also work either side of the tibia and fibula, and you can slide up the lower leg too. Do circles. Some people actually find it relaxing when you do these circles if you gently click the stones together, but the choice is yours. But ideally when you're working, you don't want to continuously clash the stones. When you're finished and the heat is starting to drain from the stones, you can slide one just under the knee and take your remaining stone and just use it just to warm up the foot and just do some gentle foot massage. And again, if you want to use the edge, you can work in between the bones of the foot, the metatarsals. And depending on how the foot's sitting, sometimes you can get the stone just to sit here, but if you're struggling and you find that difficult, then you can just remove the stone when you're done. A nice little addition when you've finished the leg massage for hot stones is to get the tiny stones and you heat them up in the water. They heat really quickly, but they do also lose their heat quickly, and you can just pop them in between the toes and they retain their heat for a few moments, maybe about 10 minutes. And some people actually like to pop a sock on afterwards, and you might even have a stone just underneath, and then it's just the residual heat as it's slowly cooling down. It feels really nice and relaxing on the toes, and they're so easy to take away once you're done. So hot stones in the stomach can be really effective, but again, just check with your client that they don't have any reasons why they shouldn't get it done. So if there's any sort of pregnancy, obviously that's a no-no because you don't want to introduce heat into the area. If they've had a recent operation, there's many more reasons. But likewise, if they've got IBS, if they've got an uncomfortable stomach, if they've got cramp, then introducing heat can be excellent. So you can use one stone and you can just alternate in between strokes and just using manual massage. You can also do a bit of double-handed kneading and use the stone to do that too. And again, just following the colon. If you want to, you can just use 2 stones and just do your diamond effleurage. But probably the most effective thing would be to use your larger stone, your sacral stone, and just put it in a towel for safety because it's too hot just to place directly onto the skin, and just have that sitting on the stomach, and while you're doing your treatments, it's just a lovely intense heat for your client and it's covered for safety. Hot stones on the arm. Again, just apply your massage medium and a quick manual massage just to warm up the area. And then when you're ready to introduce your stones, again, just turn them in your hands so that you're taking away any extreme heat. If you want to, you can use the heat that's built up in your hands just to do a nice quick effleurage. And then when you're ready, now you can use one stone at a time and just support with the other hand. And again, just hook it into the palm of your hand. Just work it all the way over and slide back. And then if you want to swap over your stones so that you keep getting a nice even heat, swap and take that stone and effleurage it just from the palm of the hand and slide up just to the axillary node. And then you can take both stones and just gently slide all the way up. You can do some nice gentle kneading. And if you want, you can take the hand and you can move it outwards. It's completely up to yourself. You can also do the same thing on the lower arm. You can support the hand and you can do kneading just to boost circulation and lymphatic drainage to the supratrochlear. Or you can just slide it along. And then can do basically any moves that you feel are effective for your client and also comfortable to do. And then when you're finished, nice kneading manipulations just to get heat into the palm of the hand. And then it's quite nice actually to keep the cooler stone in the hand, and then if you need to, just cover it with a towel and trap in the heat. Some extra moves that you can do when you're doing hot stones in the arms is to take your longer stones and actually do some manipulations around the shoulders and just work in there and just loosen it off and slide back over. And if you feel that they're starting to cool down, just turn them round and use the other side. And then these stones are also quite good for getting a nice drain. And they can slide even directly up to the axillary node. So again, just use these ones as you feel necessary, but they are really good for getting rid of tension and nodules. A little extra bonus, if you've got the little tiny stones, you can use them on the toes, but we can also use them in between the fingers as well. And it's a lovely little addition that just traps a little heat in. You don't even need to keep these for a full body massage. You can also introduce them when you're doing a manicure or a pedicure too. And when you're finished, they just slide out really easily. So for hot stones on the facial area, you can apply a tiny bit of oil, but you really don't need too much. Just enough to give you some slip and slide. And again, a bit of manual massage just to warm up the tissues and introduce your touch. And then what you can do is just start on the upper chest area, and you can use your longer stones just to heat the area up. Really get in there. You can spend a bit of time just sliding over the top of the shoulders just to warm it up. You can work on the clavicle area, do small circles just to release tension on the pectorals, slide around the shoulders, and just make full use of them as being able to loosen a lot of tension that you get in that area. And when you've used up all the heat for these ones, they should sit quite nicely on the clavicles. And then you can use your stones. Now the smaller stones lose their heat very quickly, so just work with them, just doing nice strokes on areas. You can stroke outwards, sort of helping to drain to nodes. You can also work upwards. You can work in circles over the eyes. And you can even hook in, just using your thumbs, just hook in and just gently pinch the eyebrows. And just really use these stones until you feel that there's no heat left in them. And we've got 2 sets here, so then we would just continue. And you can also take these stones just into the hairline. You can do little circles. You can get right behind the neck, work behind the ears, and again just until you feel that there's no heat left in them. And when you're done, a little bit more manual massage, maybe some movements on the scalp, and then just when you're finished you could do a few circles at the temples. And because you've got all this heat within your palms, just holding on to the ears just for a few seconds just traps in the heat and feels really nice and relaxing for your client. And again, a few circles at the temples, release. And then you can leave these stones on just while you do all your tidying up, and it could be the last thing that you take off just to get every last bit of heat from those stones.